Before we get started, this is an introduction to a series of history videos that will be listed under as the Banana Wars. Now, this video is simply acting as a bit of a background of the United Fruits Company, a US company that essentially caused a massive amount of issues within Central America for over a century, and they had a massive hand in causing the Banana Wars. This video will cover the company's history up until the 1930s and the adoption of the US's Good Neighbor policy. There was a massive amount of horrible events and information that this company has done following that time frame, but that will not be the scope of this video. Just want to get that out of the way before continuing on. So, let's begin. In 1871, U.S. entrepreneur Henry Meigs signed a contract with the government of Costa Rica to build a railroad connecting the capital of San Jose to the port of Limon. Meigs was assisted in the project by his nephew, Minor C. Keith, who took over Meigs' business in Costa Rica after his death in 1877. Keith from there began experimenting with the planting of bananas as a cheap source of food for his workers. When the Costa Rican government defaulted on its payments in 1882, Keith had to borrow £1.2 million to continue the engineering project. In exchange for this, and for renegotiating Costa Rica's own debt, the administration of President Prospero Oramuno agreed to give Keith 800,000 acres of land along the railway, plus a 99-year lease on the train route. The railroad was complete in 1890, but the flow of passengers proved insufficient to offset the debt. On the other hand, the sale of bananas grown in his lands and transported first by train to Limon, then by ship to the United States, proved to be very lucrative. Keith eventually came to dominate the banana trade in Central America and along the Caribbean coast of Colombia. In 1899, Keith lost $1.5 million when a New York City broker went bankrupt. He traveled to Boston to participate in the merger of his trading company, the Tropical Trading and Transport, with the rival Boston Fruit Company. Boston Fruit had been established by Lorenzo Dow Baker, a sailor who, in 1870, had bought his first bananas in Jamaica, and with businessman Andrew Preston. The merger formed the United Fruits Company based in Boston, with Preston as president and Keith as vice president. Preston's lawyer Bradley Palmer became a permanent member of the executive committee, and for long periods of time acted as the director. Together, these men had a massive influence over the market, with Preston bringing his plantations from the West Indies, a fleet of steamships, and his market in the US Northeast. Keith brought his plantations and railroads in Central America, with his market in the US South and Southeast. The company, at Palmer's direction, proceeded to buy or buy a share in 14 different competitors, assuring them 80% of the banana import business into the United States, then their main source of income. The company catapulted into financial success following this, with Bradley Palmer overnight becoming a much sought-after expert in business law, as well as a very wealthy man. He later became a consultant to presidents and an advisor to Congress. The company would often bribe the Central American governments for special treatment, and they had ingrown monopolies on transportation, communication, and land ownership in these nations. Various economic exclaves existed, where the company's investment only helped itself and its investors, while providing little to no of the way of the export wealth to the host country. One of the company's primary tactics for maintaining market dominance was to control the distribution of lands. The company claimed that hurricanes and other natural threats required them to hold extra land or reserve land that wasn't owned by them. In practice, what this meant was that the fruits company was able to prevent the government from distributing banana lands or other crop lands to peasants who wanted a share of the trade. The fact that the company relied so heavily on manipulating land rights uses had a number of long-term consequences for the region. For the company to maintain its unequal land holdings, it often required government concessions, and this in turn meant that the company had to be politically involved in the region even though it was an American company, and the term Banana Republic comes directly from this. This resulted in a massive amount of public unrest in these nations, and the United States on more than one occasion had invaded, occupied, policed, or overthrew the nation's government to install a pro-American, pro-United Fruits government and/or dictator, all in the name of profit. I hope all of you enjoyed the video. In the next coming weeks, I will be uploading one video over the 5 main events of the Banana Wars series. If there are other topics that you would like me to cover in the future, please say so down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.